Hey, what's going on, guys? What's up, Niner Nation? This is the Niner Fanatic Podcast, and I'm here with the Niner Nate. And you know him, you all know him from the Spaces. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your content, Nate? But I'm really excited to have you on today.
Super excited to be here with you. So you can find me at 90849 on Twitter. You can also find the 908's Nonsense podcast on YouTube. It launches tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Pacific time. I'm super excited. The official launch of this thing that I've been working on forever. You can also find the 908's Nonsense podcast on, all your podcasting platforms, all that stuff. But yeah, excited to be here with you. Excited to talk 49 football. Everyone's kind of ramping up as we get close to the draft. It's sort of weird, it was basically like I didn't get any calls or any texts or anything from anyone. And then all of a sudden, over the last 2 weeks, everyone's reaching out and wants to talk.
Yeah, I mean, well, everybody sees that you're putting out you're starting your YouTube channel. So, of course, we want to get you on, get as much exposure as we possibly can. I love that part about the 49er community, the content creator community, is that we all everybody is so genuine and like good to each other for the most part. And it's everybody tries to help each other out. So like I just want to get you as much exposure as you can. I see you in the Niner spaces all the time, pretty much every day, just like I'm in there every day too. So yeah, like anything special that you saw today? I didn't see any real special news today, but anything that you saw that I didn't?
Not 49 related. The XFL is coming back next year, which is kind of exciting because I worked for the Seattle Dragons for about a year until COVID destroyed their season. So my biggest thing with that was always that I want it to be a farm system for the NFL. And I'm hoping with them coming back, they can maybe look into making that more of a reality. I think that that's what they wanted to do, but the first season was like a wait and see season. So the sooner that happens for the NFL, the sooner this league is better than it's ever been. Because once you have a farm system and a place for, guys and kids, to get better over the course of an off season, that's when you start to see like huge, guys seeing, huge improvements from year to year, as opposed to, where Trey Lance basically didn't get to play football except for those 2 games last year. If he went to an XFL team and got to play for an XFL team last year, I'm guessing people are a little bit more confident about the 49ers going into this season than a lot of people seem to be, which is sort of bizarre because I think that Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah,
That's
I
a,
think
that's
we
a
all
topic
think
for
that.
another day.
Yeah, I think we all think that, and and I think the XFL really that's immediately what I thought of any football league that starts itself up like next to the NFL, because you're not going to compete with the NFL, but you have to find your niche, and it's kind of just like podcasting. You kind of have to find your niche and what you do well. And I think XFL, the thing that I liked the most about them when they were going was that they were trying out things, trying out rules to differentiate themselves from the NFL. And it's things that the NFL could adopt. I think that they looked at it that way, and I think that they are. I think I heard that they are talking to the Rock or whoever's running the XFL right now to
Yeah.
uh to do something like that.
Yeah, The Rock is, I'm pretty sure they're like weird commissioner or something like
Yeah,
that. Or he owns it or something like that. And
yeah. I
so,
think he bought it
yeah, he bought it from old wrestling guy,
from Vince. From Vince.
Vince. Yeah, I don't know a
Yeah,
ton about wrestling. I just know he's the wrestling guy. And so they bought it from him. And then, so it's basically up to The Rock to kind of just figure out how it's going to happen. But I mean, The Rock is like, that dude makes more money on like terrible movies than anybody makes on good movies. And so that dude has so much money to spend that I
yeah,
imagine like the first season will probably be kind of like a setup season. But if it's successful, I could see the NFL being like, hey, we want in. What do we have to do? And that's like ideally where this goes. And, where you're drafting guys in the 6th and 7th round, they're going off to an XFL team and playing for a season. If they don't make your squad, and practice squad specifically, like NFL practice squad players are eligible to stay on an NFL practice squad while also playing for an XFL team, that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, I see it as a spot where I think that eventually what's going to end up happening is that kids aren't going to have to necessarily go to college. They may be able to go to XFL. Like I think the NBA wanted to do
Yeah.
that with their development league eventually. but I think I could see the XFL letting these young kids get in and see if there is that dramatic of a drop off, like when you're talking about, because I mean there is a difference between 18-year-old strength and grown man strength. So well, we'll see, but yeah, I think that the XFL, I loved it when it was out this last time. COVID kind of gave it a raw deal,
Yeah.
but it gave everybody a raw deal, right? So it's yeah,
It's wild
it
that the last two football leagues they've tried to start outside the NFL have basically, AAF was destroyed because of the way funding was done.
yeah,
And now the XFL, with the worst pandemic, they've seen in whatever, how many years. And it was funny just because like the XFL was seeing success. Like when I was working
yes, it
for the
was.
Seattle Dragons, we were noticing that more and more people were attending games week in and week out. And so if they can see that kind of success again when they bring it back, I think we'll be fine. I think that eventually it'll become what people actually want it to be. You just have to get through the growing pains.
Yeah, for sure. Like in any league. Um, so today there was a piece of news that came out this morning about Stephon Diggs getting his big contract, and I guess he got 72 million over 5 years, which is pretty big contract. But I think it's newsworthy just because I think that's a lot of people were talking about today that that could be a similar deal that Debo gets. I don't know what you thought about that. And do you think that he gets maybe more than that? I don't know because I just think that Debo doesn't have the body of work that Stephon Diggs has. But what do you think about that?
So it's kind of interesting. People were kind of celebrating when this contract came out in a way, just for the Debo thing, because they think he'll get less than that. The problem here's the problem with the NFL and the problem with the way things have been for a while now is it's not based on your production in the way that people think it is more, yes, Diggs has been in the league a lot longer than Debo Samuel, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter because the way these contracts are, and especially with the salary cap going up next year and the way that it's going up, not this season, but the following year, that these contracts are just going to be, it's going to be one upping, and it doesn't matter, if you're a wide receiver in the NFL, it's going to be one upping. And so the Niners need to focus on getting the contracts out before DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and AJ Brown. Those are the four. Those are the four. One of those four, whoever goes first, it's going to fall like dominoes, but falling upwards. And it's going to be. And so if they can get that contract out before those, I'll feel a lot better. But right now, I mean, the Diggs thing, he'll probably get around that much. I'm trying to think what the annual is because I think it was 104 million over 4 years, which would be, and 70 million guaranteed, which would be a little over 25 million per year, I think.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was thinking it was going to be around.
that's what it's going to be for Debo. I think Debo's probably going to make 24, 25, 26, something like that. But if that's only if he gets in front of DK, Terry, and AJ. And that's up to the 49ers because if he doesn't get in front of them, we're going to be looking more closer to the 30 range like what Adams got because those are the four that are going to be compared against each other. Adams is kind of in a world of his own. He's been the best, receiver in the entire league forever. And so the Tyreek Hill thing and the Adams thing, I don't see that argument as much, but the Diggs, I'm kind of talking in circles, I feel like, but like the Diggs thing is not as consequential, I think, as people think it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And it's I've just kind of used it as a guideline because I think that you can kind of look at Debo, what Debo means to the 49ers. And I would say that he is a much bigger piece to what the 49ers do than Stephon Diggs. Now, people would say that that's crazy to say Stephon Diggs puts up all this production, but the reality is he's a receiver. Debo does a little bit of everything. And I mean, they even had him returning kicks. And I think that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get the ball in Debo's hands. Whereas Stephon Diggs is a receiver. He's a dominating receiver, but he is a receiver. He does one thing. So I think that might have something to do with if Debo gets a little bit more than him and Debo's age, right? This is going to be his first big contract. So it's, it's entirely possible that he goes big on this first one, but I don't think he's going to get as much as Devontae. I don't think it's going to even touch that.
No,
But
no, it won't touch Devontae, I think,
yeah,
but the Diggs gets kind of probably more that range. And it's honestly up to Debo, right? Like he has to decide, do you want to try and have more than what Diggs got when Diggs has been in the league much longer? That's why I think that they're going to be more focused on, those four. And then those guys, fighting for more money, as each one gets their contract. I just think that the one problem that Debo Samuel and what the 49ers could potentially do is the fact that, he's never played 16 games in a season. It's just never happened.
yeah,
And so the 49ers could very well, take money away because of that. And that could be where impasses happen and where a potential trade could happen because of that. It's interesting because I don't think Debo's the kind of guy who would hold out, to get a contract, but you never know with these guys. And then
you just never know.
It's funny because people, they signed Ray McLeod, right? And so people are like, oh my God, this guy's a kick returner, all this stuff. I think they're going to use him like Debo. And I think that the reason they go out and get him get him is because they want to assure that if they spend 26, 27, whatever $1 million a year on Debo, that this guy is taking some more hits where Debo's not just taking hit after hit after hit.
Exactly.
Becoming the next Todd Gurley. So I think that plan is there where they can afford paying him this kind of money. But the 49ers do weird stuff, we could wake up tomorrow and he's a Jet. Like, I do not know what's going to happen. And that's kind of the wildest thing. Like, I have no idea if this man is going to be a Jet tomorrow, if he's going to be a 49er. And if they trade him, this fan base will explode.
49er Twitter may burn it down.
Yeah, and it's funny because he was part of the reason that they made it as far as they did, right? But at the same time, like, at what point do you decide if a wide receiver is worth that much? And do you decide that, okay, our future is probably going to be Ayuk and a rookie? Because they could do that. I mean, we never thought in a million years that it would be Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and a rookie. We thought it was going to be Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and Buckner. And so the 49ers have shown they don't care about, churning a roster if they believe that it makes them better and it can make them so they can continue to compete in the playoffs. And so far, technically, they've shown us that they're right. Now, if they trade Debo and they see, and Christian Watson is the pick and he's not as, dynamic and Raymond McLeod is just not filling that Debo role properly, then there's a lot of questions there and you start to, question the front office. But this is a kind of an interesting situation just because I don't trust them when they say Debo's going to be a 49er for a long time, because I trusted them when they said Buckner's going to be a 49er for a long time. And then they said, no, and they stabbed me in the back. And so I have trust issues with the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, I think we all do, because I think it was like kind of a they coined the phrase, Niners don't leak. We don't hear anything really. And all we hear is the talking heads, and we know that they're wrong. Like 90% of the time they're wrong. So it's going to be really interesting. And I'm just, it's entirely possible what you say that they could trade Debo. I'm just thinking, I'm just listening to you talk about it, and I'm thinking about the haul that they probably would get for Debo. I think that they could easily get a first and a second, maybe, like and maybe a future pick after that. So I look at the Tyreek Hill deal, and I mean, I see that they could get Christian Watson and another guy in the first round.
They could go get Christian Watson and the best edge rusher available. And at one point you ask yourself, are the 49ers better because they have Christian Watson and another edge rusher to go with Kerry Hyder? Or are they better with Debo and Ray McLeod? And so obviously I don't know a lot about Raymond McLeod. Like I haven't watched a ton of film because he's not really like a super well-known player, right?
No.
And it's just like, do you believe that Debo can do what he did last year again? That's what they have to think. And I think that they thought that DeForest Buckner could not replicate what he did in 2019. It
Yeah.
was not going to happen. It was too much of a product of Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead basically having no, being there, but Nick Bosa being a rookie and not being all the way, as polished as they want. And so if they move off Debo, people are going to be mad, but there are ways they can spin this to make it better. And that's if they get Christian Watson and the best edge rusher available. And I think that they know that.
Yeah. And it's entirely possible that, but this is the thing. What they can't do is draft, if they do that, they can't draft another Javon Kinlaw. Like that can't happen. It's because I think Javon Kinlaw, I think he's immensely talented, and I'm really excited to see what he does this season. But they've proven that they struggle with those early round picks, especially when it has something to do with offensive line or even defensive line. I mean, Solomon Thomas and Javon Kinlaw. And who was the other guy? Well, they got him in the second round, but who was the other guy? Hasn't been on the team for like 2 seasons.
Reuben Foster.
They got the guy that they got in the second round. Dante Pettis. You got Dante Pettis is out there, and you've got a few different guys that they've gotten in those early rounds and McGlinchey. Not that McGlinchey's bad. But McGlinchey
we can have that conversation if you want.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna. We could go around and around about McGlinchey because it's not that he's terrible. He just has the worst. He just decides to have a bad play on the worst possible times every single time. It's just,
and it's funny you mentioned that first draft. So that first draft is interesting because, it's a new organization. They're not going to hit everything, but they hit George Kittle. And so as long as they hit one of those picks, they were fine, right? Following year, they get who was the first pick in that draft? Oh my God, am I drawing a blank? That wasn't Nick Bosa. Was that Nick Bosa?
It was Solomon Thomas, wasn't it?
No, the year after that. Who was it after that?
Oh,
it was McGlinchey. It was McGlinchey. And so they knew McGlinchey was what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I think that while he hasn't proven to be I think he was 12th or 13th or something like that. He hasn't, been the best, 12th or 13th pick. He's been fine. He's decent. He does what he needs to do. Hopefully he comes back healthy.
Yeah, great in the run game.
But then that year they hit on Fred Warner. And Fred Warner is another, pinnacle player in your franchise, right? Mm-hmm. Then the following year, they got Debo and Bosa. And so as long as you're hitting, 50% of your picks, you're doing pretty decent. And the only time they didn't hit 50% of the picks is that first year. I think they're excused for that. And last year, if they hit on Trey Lance, nothing matters.
None of it matters.
I lived in Seattle for 4 years. They didn't hit a first round pick any of those years.
Yeah.
They drafted Rashad Penny in the first round. Yeah. And the guy was terrible. But it didn't matter. They're still winning 10 and 11 games because the quarterback is good. If your quarterback is good in this league, it doesn't matter because you know why? The rules are so situated to make quarterbacks literally do whatever they want. They're God on the field. Yeah. That if your quarterback is good, you're going to find a way to make the playoffs every single year. So, that's why people don't, I don't take the draft pick stuff too serious. And people are like, oh my God, John Lynch drafts terribly. Yeah, but if he drafted terrible, which he didn't, if they literally hit this pick from last year, nothing matters anymore because they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. When you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, anything's possible. People in Seattle literally thought every year that the Seattle Seahawks were going to win the Super Bowl. Every year because they had a quarterback. The rest of the roster was trash, but they had a quarterback. And 49er fans are going to feel that way if Trey Lance is good. And that's honestly all you need. And if they really move off Debo because they think Trey Lance is that good and they build around Trey Lance in that way, then I'm not going to be as mad as most of Niners Twitter is because I think that they've proven if Trey Lance is good, man, they've proven everyone wrong.
Yeah, everyone. For sure. And this is the thing. I don't want to speak that into existence because I love Debo. And I think that he is the heart and soul of the team. At least he was last season. And but I do wonder if his style will translate with Trey's style. I think everybody's kind of expecting Ayuk to be the big breakout this next season because his style kind of translates to that down the field throwing that the Trey like. Trey is an intermediate and long guy. He's like the anti Jimmy, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they decide. But I don't think that we'll know about Debo's contract until probably, I would say, until around OTAs, like anything goes. Because I mean, we didn't see the Warner deal till I think it was July, and then we didn't see Kittle's. Kittle got his deal about the same time. So
Yeah.
like we got a ways to wait. But it's always fun to speculate.
Unless they trade him at the draft, there's always that chance.
Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. I would my heart would drop out of my chest.
I think DK they offered, and DK is not as good as Debo.
No,
they offered them pick 9, and it's just pick 9 from what the rumor is. I mean, if there are more picks, maybe, but the Niners get offered pick 9, pick their whatever other Jets pick there is in the second round. Like the Niners would get multiple picks for Debo because Debo with Robert Saleh would be exactly what the Jets are looking for. For Zach Wilson. And so if it happened and then they turned it into Christian Watson and an edge rusher, God, I'm going to come off as an asshole. But and the thing is like I'm totally down. They signed Debo to an extension. I'll go buy his jersey. Like I love the guy. He's one of one. There's nobody like him. But sometimes in the NFL, when you could find ways to get better that cost you less money and, make it so you're not spending as much money on your roster when for some godforsaken reason, there's a quarterback on your roster that costs you $25 million that for some reason is still there and they can get cheaper at not only wide receiver, but also pass rush, which is the reason they got to the Super Bowl in the first place was because the pass rush is so good. I'm going to say do it. And so if they do it, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to miss Debo, but man, like
it just depends on the haul.
Special. Christian.
Yeah, it depends on the haul that they get. Like if they just got a first round pick for Debo, I don't know that I would be happy with that. Like
first and a second, though. My God.
First and a second. Yeah, I might be okay with that.
So say you get a first and a second, you give them a fourth because we have 2 of them. Would you do it?
Oh, I'm not giving them anything. They get Debo.
Debo a fourth, and you get a first and a second this year.
I would do it if they just give me a first and a second and just Debo, and we just had to give up Debo. I shouldn't say just give up Debo, but I think Debo is worth that. I mean, what did Tyreek Hill get? I know that they're not the same player, but Tyreek Hill got what didn't he get 3 picks?
I thought it was 4.
Oh,
and they gave up a 6 or something like that. And
they
got a first.
So second. Yeah, I could see them doing that, maybe swapping a pick and then getting 2 more picks for Debo, maybe another later round guy.
It's hard to say no when you think about how expensive Debo's going to cost you.
Yeah,
and we come back all the way full course again, and Trey Lance is God, and they're winning games because he's God.
Yeah,
they're going to pay him over $200 million guaranteed because Deshaun Watson has now broken, and people don't realize it yet, I guess. But Deshaun Watson has broken the way we pay quarterbacks for the foreseeable future. The next quarterback to get paid, it's going to be obscene.
Yeah.
When Russell Wilson gets that extension next year with Denver, it's going to be obscene.
I know that
Watson has changed everything.
I know that the owners cannot stand the Browns right now. Just because that gave Watson so much power. Now, this is the thing. If it doesn't end well and they don't get anything out of it, then it hasn't changed anything.
Yeah.
Teams are going to go right back to what they were doing before, and they're going to be even more cautious. So it's it could go either way. And I still think he's going to get I think Deshaun's going to get suspended.
Oh yeah, 6 games at least.
At least
has to be.
So, yeah, we'll see. But I mean, That's why this episode is about draft fever. This is what
It's just
happens. This is what happens when you get close to the draft. We're 3 weeks away till the big day. It's mock season, and it's just draft fever. Everybody's thinking about all the possibilities, and when you have a player like Debo that's about to get paid, it's only natural that you start thinking about the possibilities and what could happen because the 49ers, they don't let us know anything. And like you said earlier, look at what happened with Buckner. And I'll tell you this, if they said what they said about Debo and Bosa and end up trading Debo, that what they said about we have a plan or whatever, he's going to be part of the future, that's going to be the kiss of death for any player going forward if they say that. Like, everybody's just going to assume that you're traded.
Anything's possible, right? Like it's literally like I have no idea what we're going to wake up and see any given day because of the way the 49ers operate. And you'll hear little things like I have people who text me and be like, "Oh yeah, this," and I'm like, but it's never fully accurate. It's never like you never know the exact numbers, the exact thing. And so at any point they can do that, and I just think that, getting cheaper at other positions in a draft that's this deep and at multiple positions, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when the Rams, continue just to spend. Eventually, they're going to spend all this money on these older players when they need to get younger. And the 49ers will be the team that's young and has stayed young because they found ways to churn the roster where the star players are still there. But there's young guys coming in, filling spots and becoming star players of their own. Eventually, they can decide to move those guys. And I think that the way the 49ers do it, while people disagree with John Lynch a lot of the time and, for some reason call him names and such on Twitter, I just think that crazy. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Adam Peters specifically, there's certain things they've gotten wrong. But I think that the way they've built this roster over the last 5 years is some of the best roster building I've seen from a 49ers squad in the last 20 years. It doesn't compare what they've been able to do with this roster compared to what we witnessed over the last 10 years. Like I love Patrick Willis, I love Navarro Bowman, all this stuff, right? But this 49er team and how fast they got good and how fast they got built to the point where like you have national pundits being like the 49ers roster is insane. Mm-hmm. That was all them. And
even though they can't name them, like even though they don't know any of their names, like it's crazy how they get everybody's name wrong. Yeah. They couldn't even tell you who was on our defensive line.
Exactly.
And it's crazy. I think
that's weird. I've never understood that. And maybe it's because the LA team just gets more publicity, but like I live in, pretty close to San Francisco, and there's more money in this area and like where Santa Clara, San Jose, like than most places in the United States. And you would think that like the media would want to appeal to those type of fans.
Yeah, for sure. And a shout out to Kelts. Thanks for watching, brother. But yeah, we're in that part of the year where there's so much optimism with all these draft picks, and the more I do mocks, the more I look at the tape on these guys, the more excited that I get about what could be. And I always do. I got this from BD Peacock on Locked On 49ers, but I do a shadow draft every year. And it's my favorite thing to do on Madden is roster building. So it's I can't wait. I just cannot wait to see my shadow draft last year didn't actually end. The 49ers actually did a lot of the things that I had picked a lot of the guys that I thought they were going to pick, except for a couple. But yeah, this year I think they have some specific needs in this that they can address in the draft, but they're going to have to go up and get guys. And I'm not. I know that they're all big about trading up and down and all over the place in the draft. So I don't put it past them to be able to draft up and get a couple of these guys. Like one of my draft crushes is Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State. I feel like we need to close the door on the whole Tart thing, and I think we need to move on. Like I love Tart to death. I think he's a good player. I just don't think that you re-sign a guy that's starting to get up there in the years, and yeah, we need a playmaker in that secondary, and I think that Jaquan Brisker is a really good player.
I have a question for
So
you. Talking about safeties, do you really wish? I mean, I don't know where Jaquan Brisker is going to go exactly, but do you really believe you should spend a top, 3-round pick on a safety? Just because, like, one thing about safeties is it's not really a position that like makes a ton of money. It's a position that has a lot of churn.
mhm.
How do you feel about drafting a safety and the top 60 picks? I guess.
I think that it's actually a smart way to go because you want a guy that's supremely talented and is versatile. You don't want a guy that can only play to split safety or split zone or a guy that's just man like just box safety. In the higher you go in the draft in the first second round, those are the guys that you get that are versatile that you can move all over the chessboard, and especially for what the 49ers do on defense. And I love this about D'Amico is he really uses those safeties to mask what the corners are weak at. And I think it would be really important for him to get a solid to just solidify that safety spot. And now you have the versatility of having him and or a really good safety. It doesn't have to be Brisker, and having Jimmy Ward on the other side. You can move them all over the place. Both of them could play single high, could play whatever you need them to play, and they can even drop down in the slot and guard that slot receiver. So I think it's immensely important that you draft early on the safety spot, especially because you just said they don't make a lot of money. So even though you got him in that first, second round, you're not breaking the bank, and but you got a really good player and a guy that you could build on in that secondary, and you don't necessarily have to get top end, even though they went out and got Travarius Ward. They don't have to go out and get top end corners, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one thing about the draft I've kind of come to a realization with over the last couple of years is when the 49ers draft for need over best player available, they don't hit the picks as much. Meaning, so they knew they needed someone to replace, Staley eventually or, whatever, right? And so they draft McGlinchey. And well, I like McGlinchey. That was a player of need more than it was best player available. There was definitely a player available, his name was Derwin James, who was better, right? And if Derwin James is on the 49ers, I don't know if he has the injury history, but like they have a safety right now as opposed to, McGlinchey who's hurt, right? And I'm not trying to badmouth McGlinchey. Don't come get me on Twitter. I know he's very much, and I like the guy. Like people get mad at me because I had a guy who I did a podcast with, we call him Concrete Feet McGlinchey, and I was like, no, it's not him. Anyways, whenever they draft for needs, when they drafted Kinlaw, and I like Javon Kinlaw. He's a very talented guy. I think that maybe there's a chance that he lives up to that hype this season. I think they're relying on it, obviously. But they drafted for what they needed as opposed to best player available. And, that hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
But then you look in the later rounds and you look at, Fred Warner, and they didn't need a linebacker, right? They just saw a player with immense talent, drafted him in the 3rd round, went on to become a star. They didn't need a tight end when they drafted George Kittle, saw talent, athleticism, whatever, drafted and became one of the best players on the Niners. The face of the franchise, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Now, and Debo, they didn't necessarily need a wide receiver, but they went out and got Debo because he was the best player available in the 2nd round. They couldn't pass him up. And I just feel like if the 49ers, having just gone to the NFC Championship game, being 3 points away from a Super Bowl, a Super Bowl championship, because I don't give a hell what anybody says. The Bengals were not beating the 49ers, even with Jimmy Cam Garoppolo.
No.
And so when you think about this draft and you have 9 picks, right? I think it's 9. I'm pretty sure it's 9.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What you should be doing is in that 2nd round, once you get there, I would be calling everybody and trying to figure out where guys are going and go move up and get the best player available early in that 2nd round. And then in the later rounds, continue to just do best player available. And you're going to fill those spots of, where you need guys, but it's going to be filled with guys who are based on potential and, guys who could potentially be the future of the 49ers. And I really feel like there's some guys that if they do best player available this year and they just snag them, people aren't going to know who the hell they are. But by the end of the season, this season, they're going to be like, I can't believe that we got him in the 3rd round or the 4th round, because they don't need anybody.
Yeah.
There's every position on this team is filled. Maybe not with the best talent available, but they don't need anybody. They have someone for every single spot. And so when you are coming off of an NFC Championship, game, you're coming out with a quarterback who should be better than what you currently have, and you just go best player available for 9 picks and move up and take what you want and do what you need. I think this will be one of the better drafts they've had, because there's nobody they absolutely need. Last year, they absolutely needed a quarterback. That was the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And you kind of saw, and I think that's why Aaron Banks is going to turn out to be decent, because they didn't necessarily need a guard, right? They didn't know, they kind of assumed Lakin was going to be too expensive and he would leave, right? But they didn't need a guard, so they went out and got the best guard available. Maybe two in the 2nd round is too early for a guard, but that was who they believe was the best player available. And we'll see what happens there. But like Ambry Thomas, they needed corners, but like that guy came on towards the end of the season where like people are like, oh, this guy might have some future. And you look at these later rounds, Juwan Jennings, they didn't need another wide receiver. They got him because he was an athletic freak. And look, he was a decent wide receiver 3 last year. So I'm all about best player available for the 49ers, who's on their board, as opposed to filling safety, filling this, filling that. I trust them more than I think most people do.
Yeah. So I look at the draft as, if you can upgrade at certain positions, it's not necessarily a need, but I feel like there's certain positions that if you can upgrade where you're at and there's a really good player there, like, and you can kind of, like you said, make your phone calls, see where certain guys, it looks like certain guys are going to go, and then position your draft to take the guys that you're honing in on. I think that's a better idea than sometimes, like, because let's say you have a glut at linebacker, like, then now you just have, then you're going to end up having to trade somebody, right? And who knows if you get the right value. I mean,
they have a glut at linebacker right now, right? Like, they got to find a way to move Greenlaw.
I think Greenlaw's going to get traded. Like,
they have to move him.
Yeah,
there's no way he's on the team after this year. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that he's a guy that's definitely gonna, and I'm gonna bring up that point in a couple of minutes. But yeah, like, I think he's absolutely got to go, and I think he's gonna go during the draft. But I guess we can transition into this next question. Would you be surprised by a Jimmy trade during the draft, and with who? Like, who do you think that it would be with? Because I'm hearing a lot of rumblings from Carolina about their moving towards Kenny Pickett, and which screams to me that they need Jimmy to mentor him for a year.
I think that Jimmy's gonna be here next year. I think that he's gonna be on the bench. Or there's two ways he stays, right? I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Carolina's going to go in with Sam Darnold as their starter. I think that Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers next year. You can bookmark it, whatever. April 6th, I said Sam Darnold's going to be the starter of the Carolina Panthers. And Kenny Pickett may override him or whatever. Whoever they draft, Malik Willis, whatever. I think Jimmy's going to be here until that shoulder is back to normal or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to have a decision, right? And it's going to be, do we carry him for $25 million and risk the locker room, or do we cut him and get nothing? Because if they risk the locker room, they're going to get a 3rd round comp pick out of it, most likely. And so it comes down to the 49ers And this is the thing that while I can stand up for their draft choices, I can stand up for the way they do player personnel, I cannot stand up for the way they've done this Jimmy Garoppolo stuff. Excuse me. They have set up a situation where they will not move off of him for nothing. And the only way they get something is by keeping him on for another season, him making $25 million, and then getting that comp pick. And so Trey Lance is the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. I have no doubt in that. I have no doubt. He's going to get OTAs. He's probably going to get training camp. He's going to be the starter no matter what. Kyle has told him, and Kyle has had multiple conversations with him when Kyle said he doesn't talk to Jimmy during the offseason, that Trey Lance is the starting quarterback. And I believe him in that way.
Yeah.
And the question is now, how annoying and how awful is this fan base to the point where when Trey messes up, are the jackholes at Levi's chanting, "We want Jimmy"?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest worry. And that's why I think they've screwed this up, because they should have moved him for a 4th round pick. Pittsburgh lowballed him. Pittsburgh totally lowballed him from what I heard. And they should have just taken it, because him being on here and getting a 3rd round pick is not worth what Levi Stadium can do. It's not even just the locker room. Like, I understand the Armstead thing where he went on the Sacramento Kings thing and said Jimmy made us win, all that crap.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is the "we want Carr" thing happening to Trey, because this fan base is rabid.
Yeah.
If they aren't winning, they'll kill you, because they're spending a lot of money. It gets very hot at Levi's, and people get restless there. And so if they're not winning and it's Trey's fault, oh man, and that's my biggest fear. But I think he's going to be here. I don't think he's going to get traded. If he gets traded, I'll be very happy. But
I think that the draft is really kind of his best chance to get traded. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that they'll release him. But I don't think that they're going to go into the season with him, like because of just what you said. I don't think that they want to do Trey like that, because, like you said, for sure the fan base will go crazy if he has a bad couple of games. And not that I really expect him to. I think Trey's going to have a big year, but
you too, yeah.
But at the same time, if he has a bad couple of games, or let's say for whatever, or he gets injured or something to that effect, like not to wish that on anybody, but if that happens, like, and then Jimmy has to come in, and let's say Jimmy gets us to the playoffs again, it's just I just feel I thought they should have traded him. I thought they should have traded Jimmy the minute they traded up to get Trey. Like, that was my personal opinion. I just think that it's never a good thing to bring the incumbent back, like because of this very reason, and it's just not a good look for when your guy is always having to look over their shoulder. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, but I'm excited. Like, that's the best part about the draft is you just don't know what's going to happen, and there's always some huge trade. There's always some earth-shattering thing that happens during the draft. And the NFL gets tilted on its axis. So I just can't wait to see. I think the 49ers will be involved with trade talks on draft day. But I'm excited to see it.
I think they're going to trade up into the early 2nd round. And I think
I
think, and here's one thing that I think that people don't understand truly about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals went to Joe Burrow and said, "What do you want? Yeah. Do you want a tackle, or do you want Jamar Chase?" And Joe Burrow said, "I want Jamar Chase. That's who I want." And if the 49ers are going to do this right, they're going to say to Trey, "Christian is available. Do you want Christian?"
Yeah.
And if Trey Lance is who I think Trey Lance is going to say, "I want Christian Watson." And the 49ers like him from, things I've heard, people rumblings and whatnot. They like Christian Watson.
I mean, what's not to like? Like, the kid.
Yeah.
The kid is just,
he's an absolute freak. And what's nice is he's falling down draft boards because of the fact that he went to North Dakota State, which is another reason for the 49ers to go grab him. But the thing is I understand, and the thing people get misconstrued about this, and why people get mad when we're like, "Oh, I don't want to draft a wide receiver at 61," or I don't want to trade down, right? The difference between this situation and the Jamar Chase situation is totally. I understand that Jamar Chase was a freak his entire career at an SEC school in LSU. I get that, but I don't think you can underestimate how important a rookie quarterback having his wide receiver he played college football with is in the NFL. And I think that Jamar Chase has proven that no matter, and obviously Chase was always going to be a star, but Chase having the rapport he has, where there's times where Chase knows the ball's coming before it feels like Burrow is even going to throw it.
Yeah.
And I just think that kid being there and us drafting Trey last year, it's just fate. It's fate that he's here. It's fate that he's on this team. And if they end up moving Debo, or even if they sign Debo, Debo and Watson, or Ayuk and Watson and Jennings, like, that's a great wide receiving core. And I think that the 49ers defense is going to take a step back no matter what, because it's almost impossible to be as good as they've been in recent memory, especially when, Kerry Hyder is going to be your other lead pass rusher. And I get it. He was very good the first time he was here with us. He was very awful in Seattle, like very, very awful.
But it's Kasurek, bro. It's Kasurek.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, that guy is just
I just think that the defense is going to take a step back no matter what.
Yeah. I think that Chris Kasurek is a magician, and he just knows how to turn pardon my French, but sugar into shit. I mean, he's just
totally.
Or the other way around. Either way. But
sugar
the guy is
into sugar.
Yeah, exactly. The guy is just it's amazing. They just bring guys in off the scrap heap. Give me whatever your trash is, and I'll make at least a 5-sack guy out of them. And so I just think that if you look at the depth of the defensive line, they already have 12 guys on the roster already. And I think that Ebukam is going to have a step up this season because of the way he played down the stretch and because of the way he played in the playoffs. I think he's going to build on that with another year with Kasurek. I think that a couple of those guys, Amenahu, is going to have a good year with a whole offseason in the program. I think it's going to be a big deal for him. And I think they will end up drafting someone. I don't know where, but I think they will end up drafting someone for another guy to throw in the mix. But then to have Javon Kinlaw back, if he can give us meaningful snaps, I think that's a plus. So, and having Eric Armstead just play the whole season in the middle is going to be a huge upgrade for that defensive line. Throughout the season, I think that our defense is going to be scary this season. But I get everything that you're saying about Christian Watson. I think that I completely and wholeheartedly agree, even though I've been mocking nothing but offensive linemen in the first couple of rounds. I can totally see it, because if you look at what the Bengals were doing, they basically dared you to guard all of their receivers.
Yep.
They just said, look, somebody's going to be open. And Burrow to his credit, was just able to find the open guy on more often than not. And I think that Trey, in the way Kyle schemes everything up, somebody's going to be open. And I think that if it's in that intermediate and long area, Trey's going to have a field day.
I just think that the 49ers should be an offensive-based team. When Kyle Shanahan is your head coach, I think that your team should be able to just go in and decimate someone. And I think that that's what they should be building to, because I think that Trey Lance is that good. And I think that what he can do and how he can tear apart this division. I mean, if this kid, Peter, I can't fathom if this kid is as good as some of the stuff he's shown. It's not going to be fair. Kyle Shanahan is not only, the second best head coach in the NFC right now.
Yeah.
But not only that, if he has a quarterback and he has these weapons and he has, the ability to score points willingly on people, it's going to be a decimation. It's not going to be, oh, will the 49ers win this year or will not? No, it's going to be like Lewis Hamilton every single time he steps on an F1 track where he knows he's going to win
Yeah.
the whole entire championship every year. But that's going to be the 49ers.
Like think about
that's
this.
just what we're looking at.
Think about this. So last year the 49ers averaged 25.4 points a game. Like with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. How many points extra do you think Trey adds to that? Like I think it's an entire possibility that he could add like 10 points.
Yeah.
And they can be averaging 35. I mean, I don't think that they'll average 35, but I think they could average over 30 points a game. And it's entirely possible, and which is crazy to think when you have DeMeco Ryans and that defense the way that they're stacked. I just think it's I mean, look at the way I know it was the Texans, but the fact of the matter is the Texans were on fire the week before on offense, and the 49ers held them to 7 points the next week. So, and they held the Rams, they held all these guys, and I know where they were saying that you think they're going to kind of take a step back, but even let's say they take a step back, it's not going to be off a cliff. So, I just think that, and I think that people underestimate this part too about Trey is that Trey is going to give the defense something that they did not get under Jimmy, which is rest, because he's going to extend drives. And when he gets to extend drives, and even if he only scores 3, but they're just controlling time of possession, I think that that's huge for that defense, and it's gonna be a different story.
I agree 100%. I think that's why you'll get Christian Watson, because you believe that your offense is going to be
You're bringing me around on it. Like I was really kind of iffy about it in the beginning. I was thinking, well, like I really wanted him to solidify the offensive line, but I mean, the more I'm thinking about it, I mean, they have solid guys already on the rock. If they just get one guy, as a guard or future,
I want an edge rusher. I want an edge rusher, right? Like I think we all want an edge rusher, but
we need a future center. We have to have a future center.
Yeah. I think they'll get one. I just think that, man, I'm a full on Marco Martinez and a couple other guys have made me a full on member of the Christian Watson hive. Tomorrow's Niner Nation nonsense first episode of the season is Christian Watson centric. Like, this is my guy. Like, if they don't draft him, I will be sad. Like, he is my, Justin Fields last year, my Jerry Jeudy the year before, my, Nick Bosa. When I got Nick Bosa, I had never been so happy about a 49ers draft pick in my entire life, because I love that guy, and everyone's like, no, Q Williams gonna be better. I was like, no, he's not.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Watch what Nick Bosa's done. And so if they get Christian Watson, I would be the happiest man on the planet. But because of the fact that I'm such a pro Christian Watson guy, like, I am bringing other people on my show to talk about the other picks, because it's Christian Watson or bust for here. We're riding that train until it falls off.
Yeah, and now we've hit other spots that are that I was talking about, the talking points already, because we already know who you want them to trade up to get. But how many players do you think they actually draft? Because they have 9 picks, but I think they're going to move up and down and all over the place.
I think they'll probably end up with 7 or 8. I think that an edge finding. So I think say, for instance, my dream draft, right? You get Christian Watson, you trade up and go get him, and then you have another pick, in the early 3rd round. That pick should be an edge rusher. Like, absolutely the best edge rusher available. The most important things, I think after, filling the need of that, I mean, and it's not even a need, I guess, but filling that want to have, Trey have his guy, after that's filled, getting more edge rushers and finding the best player available. So just going edge rusher in a deep edge rusher class, finding the best edge rusher available, bringing him in, and then you start best player available, filling in some of the other spots. But I mean, those are my first 2 picks: is Christian Watson and whatever edge rusher they deem best to pair with Nick Bosa.
Yeah. Like I could see it. I think that they're going to end up with 7 guys, because I think they're going to use a couple of those draft picks to trade up, and I think they're going to trade up a couple of times. It's because they've got 3 picks, or 3. I think it's 3 picks in the 7th round, or 2 picks in the 7th round, and 2 picks in the 6th round. But either way, they got a bunch of late round picks, and I think they're just going to use those to move up to get the guys that they want. But potential players like we talked about Christian Watson. Who's another guy that you would like to see them go get, or get a guy that you got your sights on other than Christian Watson? You got to know somebody other than Christian Watson.
I mean, the only problem is the edge rusher, class. It's really deep. Obviously, there's a lot of guys who could potentially, be there for them. Obviously, you have the guys who go, in the first round, but I think that they'll find someone they really like that they'll feel. I've had a couple guys, people message me about what's his name, Drake Jackson, I think his name is.
Yeah. Drake Jackson, the edge rusher for USC.
Yeah, I think that's because I hang out with Roscoe's too much, to be fair. And I don't think he's gonna be there.
Yeah.
For the 49ers, he'll be gone by the time they get there. Like that'd be only if they trade it up. But it's deep enough that they could go find guys. I haven't the problem with and here's the one problem with when you're drafting only in the 2nd round is these guys that are in the later rounds aren't as commonplace, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like you're not seeing them as much because they're not just jumping off the page. But I could see them, they know better than I do, man. I don't know. I don't know a lot of these guys' names. I'm still kind of
Jesse's trying to hijack our show right now because he just said Debo unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram, so there's that.
That's just being, doing stupid tactics,
Yeah. But
stupid, playing stupid games.
Yeah, man.
Who's your big edge rusher guy? I'm kind of curious.
So edge rusher, I think that they're going to go later on in the round, because of Chris Kasurik. I think that they're going to wait on edge rusher. I don't think that they're going to go because if you really look at the way the draft goes, the guys that are going to be around at the time or even before the 49ers, the guys that are going to be around, unless somebody falls, they're just not they're not guys that I would see as guys that you would trade up for in my mind. I don't even want to butcher his name, but the guy from Penn State, Ebiketie, and then there's Drake Jackson. I was Nick Benito. All those guys are kind of to me, they're in the Hassan Reddick role, they're smaller guys that are just speed rushers, and they're not going to play every down. They're not good against the run. None of those guys are good against the run. So do you trade up to get a guy that is only going to be a situational pass rusher?
I don't think you trade up to go get an edge rusher. I think you just find the best player available,
But there's a couple of guys later in the later 4th, 5th round that you can go like Dominique Robinson out of Miami of Ohio. He used to be a wide receiver, believe it or not, but he is 260. He's about 260 pounds or 255, somewhere around there, and 6'4". And the guy flies, and he's a pass rusher right now. But I think getting him with Chris Kasurik and having the size that he has, I think he could be a gem, of a sleeper. And then I'm looking at Tyreek Smith from Ohio State. I like him. And there was one other guy that I like my Jay Sanders, but he's too small in my opinion. I don't like small guys. If anybody can tell, I'm not a big fan of having situational pass rushers. I want a guy that can. I think that the 49ers in 2019 got gashed in the run game all the time because Dee Ford was too small in my opinion, and that wasn't his strength. His strength wasn't against the run. They were trying to just rush the passer every single down. And I think that with the way the 49ers play right now, I think that it would be better to get a guy that's 260, 265 that can still has athleticism coming off the edge, but isn't necessarily just a speed guy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've spent a ton of time with a lot of these guys. So I'm not the best when it comes to the draft stuff. My thing is like I said, best player available, man. Finding the best guy who fits what you want to do and going out there. And then to mention what Jesse was talking about earlier, I'm not going to freak out about Debo unfollowing the 49ers. If I freak out about every little thing, then I'm going to drive myself nuts.
Yeah. It could be something really simple, like he's just adjusting his Instagram or whatever the case is, and people are going to fly off the handle. But we're going to hear about it all day tomorrow.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awful. It's awful. Yeah, it's gonna be terrible. But you don't have to worry about that. I won't be talking about it on my show. We'll be talking about Christian Watson.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so if because you said you haven't done you haven't seen the guys a lot yet, but I just want to go. I do want to mention a couple of guys that I'm seeing, and of course Marcus. Marcus. Everybody keeps talking Marcus Jones, out of U of H. He's 5'8", but he's a really good slot corner. And the guy he's like a smaller shark. He's a smaller K1. And but I think he might even he's definitely faster than K1, and he can cover. And then there's another, and then of course, I'm not going to go a podcast without speaking into the 49ers drafting Donovan West in this draft. I want that to happen, because I think he could be a future. I think he's the center of the future. I'm also looking at Fortner out of, I believe he's out of Kentucky, because I think that the 49ers should double dip in the interior offensive line, but who knows? 49ers don't ever do all the things that you want.
They never do what you want. So you do all this draft research, and then they don't draft the guys you want. So you're just like, okay, well, I don't even know who this guy is, so I gotta go watch film on him.
Yeah,
it's always kind of annoying.
I guess I'm just a film, I'm just a junkie that way. I love watching all these guys and just trying to guess the potential of what's going to happen with their career. And even if they don't go to the 49ers, I still pay attention to a few guys. Justin Jefferson, I knew was going to be crazy in the league. And I don't think anybody thought he was going to blow up like he did. Because everybody was enamored with Jamar Chase, even though he didn't come out that year. But they thought that Justin Jefferson was kind of getting his catches because of Jamar Chase was on the field. But I was trying to tell everybody then, I was like, Justin Jefferson is going to be that guy. I wanted the 49ers to get him, but I mean, we ended up getting Ayuk anyway. So,
breaking news for your show. Deebo Samuel never followed the 49ers on Twitter or on Instagram.
So there you go, Jesse. There you go, Jesse. You're not going to hijack this show, buddy. But yeah, it's. I can't wait for the draft. I just cannot wait.
It's gonna be a fun Saturday. It's not gonna be. I think it's Friday now. It's Friday.
It's gonna be a Friday.
Thursday's the first night. It's gonna be a fun Friday.
But Saturday and Sunday, I'm still gonna be watching.
Is Friday the first night of the draft or Thursday?
Friday.
Round one.
I think it's
Friday is round one.
Friday. I want to say it's Friday.
Thursday. Maybe I'm crazy.
It used to be on Thursdays, but I think
it is Friday this year. Okay, so it'll be a fun Saturday.
Yeah. But hey, just another little tidbit of news. The 49ers they did interview Kimoko Toure from the Colts.
Oh yeah.
Rusher. So
Marco Martinez actually tweeted something about his injury history that people should listen up on. It's pretty interesting that he's been injured, but he's actually pretty talented, and he could be another one of those guys. You mentioned Chris Kosirk finds guys and makes them great. So it'd be cool for them to turn his career around and make him great, and to see him make an impact on this team next year.
Yeah, for sure. And Mariah said it is Thursday.
So okay, so it'll be a fun Friday.
Thank you for the correction, Mariah. Just making me look like an idiot, but it's okay. But anyway, hey man, I really enjoyed having you on today. I wish you nothing but the best on your podcast.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to watch it tomorrow. And tell everybody where they can find all your content. Are you still going to do the audio podcast too?
Yeah, so we're gonna do the live show on YouTube. That'll be live at 8 o'clock, go till about 9 o'clock. Generally an hour-long show. And then Friday mornings, it'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays. This week it wasn't Tuesday because I had some stuff going on. But the next morning it'll be podcasted up on all the podcast platforms. So make sure to subscribe to Niner Nate's Nonsense. And we'll be doing shows. Next week we'll just do a Tuesday show because I'm actually going out of town. But it'll be every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 Pacific time. And we're just gonna talk about anything. I've got Jamal Armstrong coming on next week. Me and him are going to talk about,
Awesome.
some of his favorite draft prospects because he's a big draft junkie. Like I said, I'm on the Christian Watson or nothing hive, which
he loves Christian Watson too.
Yeah, no, he is too. But he's got some other names he wants to talk about, so that's cool with me. My draft tends to be I fall in love with a guy and that's my guy, and then I get disappointed when they don't draft him. And so that's what happened last year with Justin Fields. It'll never really happen this year with Christian Watson, and that's how I afford to not have so much disappointment after a draft. But so people can check it out there. We'll do a live show. It's going to be me and Chad Loomis. He's a former North Dakota State radio host, basically an expert on everything Trey Lance, everything Christian Watson. We're going to do some question and answer at the end. So if anyone wants to ask him a question about Christian Watson, Trey Lance, North Dakota State, then we'll stay on a little bit longer. We'll do that. And so I just hope people tune in. I hope people enjoy it. Also, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, 98's Nonsense, you're going to be entered into a drawing for a Trey Lance jersey that we'll do once we hit 1,000. So no reason not to subscribe. It's free.
Yeah, it's free content. Like Davo and Treyway and all of them. Like it's free.
Yeah.
Just subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. But hey, I really appreciate having you on, and thank you guys for listening. Just like Nate was saying, it's all free. I'm on YouTube. I am on Twitter. I am broadcasting to Facebook. I'm gonna move from Facebook to Twitch pretty soon. But I'm also you can find my the podcast on in the audio form on Anchor, Google Pod, Apple Pod, Spotify, all your major podcast places. So please check it out. Please give me comments. I'm still learning, and it's still a process for me. So please give me feedback. I love all the feedback, and go subscribe to Nate's stuff. Get your jersey. I already subscribed. I better be in the drawing. But
everybody's in the drawing. It doesn't matter how well I know you.
Yeah. So, but thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next Wednesday, 6:30 Pacific time, and go Niners.
Hype train never stops, baby.
Yeah.